Hi, I'm Randy MacLean, the president of WayPoint Analytics, and Steve Epner, principal at the Startup Within. Steve has been looking at and analyzing and helping people fix issues in distribution for many years. He's also teaches in the MBA program at St. Louis University. And he's here today, and we're having some great discussions about some of the things that really came out of his book, Simplify Everything. And this is a great manual for a manager or an executive. It's a sort of no fluff discussion of the things that managers and executives need to do or can do that can get great performance gains out of virtually any company. And it's a huge resource, and Steve has made it available at no charge. Somewhere around this video there'll be a link that you can download the book for free, or you can get it at Amazon, Simplify Everything by Steve Epner.
And please don't forget the subtitle, Get Your Team from Do to Done.
Exactly.
Because when you simplify processes, when you're improving what people do, it's because we're moving from busy work to completed work.
Exactly, and it's important that it's the right work. So one of the things that we've seen, we've had a lot of discussions about how you can measure different things, how you can have better performance, how you can improve the productivity of each segment of the business. But we haven't spent a lot of time up until now talking about more of the specifics of what you do to make that happen. So Steve, a lot of this comes down to process, and it comes down to efficiency. And we know from our recent experience and the analytics that we've been doing, looking at some of the companies that produce extraordinary profit lines, the one thing that can be said is common in all of them is they are very, very good at the core competency of a distribution company, that is moving product. They're very efficient at each stage of the process, whether it's handling the orders or assembly or warehouse or delivery, or any of the things that a distribution company does. They're very efficient at it, and efficiency means they get the most out for what they put in. They get the most dollars processed for the least dollars spent. And that's vital, but then where do those changes come from? What are they actually doing?
Well, there are a couple things. First of all, you're talking about efficiency. We all understand efficiency, how to do it better, faster. The other question, though, is it effective? In other words, are you doing the right things? If I'm doing the wrong thing, no matter how effective I am, how efficient I am at doing it, I shouldn't be doing it.
It's not effective, exactly.
Okay, so let's be careful with our definition. It's not just efficiency. Because if I do the wrong thing well, it doesn't get me anywhere.
Right, exactly.
I got to do the right thing right.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to be concentrating on.
Yeah, and to sum that up, one of the things that we know and we recommend is, or we help executives understand, that the winner of the race is not the Superman guy that can jump into the phone booth and rip open and has the big muscles. It's the guy who he or she and their team spend a larger proportion of their day working on the right things.
Correct.
Working on things that matter, the things that are going to make a difference, the things that are going to drive the ball forward down the field, the things that customers want.
Well, and this is very important because let's just take a simple example of shipping. Mm-hmm. Every company has shipping errors. Every company has found ways to try and overcome shipping errors. But if people think, okay, the shipping errors because we put the wrong thing in the box, and so every time we bring a box to the shipping station, we're going to have another person unpack everything in there and check off that the right things are in there. That is not efficient.
No.
That is maybe going to reduce the number of shipping errors, and it may not, but it is going to be highly inefficient. What we have to do is we need to step back and understand why we're having shipping errors and then do things to improve that so we don't have to unbox and rebox everything. Because when we take it out and put it back in, that's just do work. That doesn't get us done. That doesn't get the box out the door.
Yes, and in fact, in my distant past, I worked in an organization, and they had a similar issue. The controller was some great gal that came in at dawn, worked till midnight, was there 7 days a week, and so on. And every time something went wrong in the company, the president would haul her into the office, give her call her on the carpet for these errors happening, and she would go back to her office and invent another system where she would personally check whatever it was that went wrong so it would never go wrong again. And when I took over the service division in that company, in order to get a part in from a customer, send it out to a contractor to fix it and get it back to the customer, took 14 forms, 14. And every one of them had to cross over her desk for her signature. And frankly, we were so paper bound, we couldn't get anything done. And because of that, because they were constantly solving the symptom of the problem about putting more processes on things without regard to whether it was a big problem, a small problem, a frequent problem, an infrequent problem, they basically bound the company up to the point where it couldn't do business effectively, and it went out of business.
You know, listening to that story, that is so funny because I hear things like that all the time. We had one company that had a proofreader, was hired to review all invoices before they went out the door, and I found out because once there was a spelling error, and it went to the friend of the president, and he always teased him about that. So he had a full-time person rereading every invoice to make sure there were no spelling errors.
Oh my gosh.
And this was now we had spell check.
Yeah, and not only that, that's not scalable. If we get twice as many customers, we've got to hire twice as many proofreaders.
Right.
That's crazy. And that's actually one of the biggest symptoms that we have with process improvement, or one of the biggest problems we have. People don't take time to properly analyze the problem.
Perfect.
And they wind up solving the symptom or addressing the symptom of the problem rather than the problem itself.
How many small companies do you know, and when I say small, small, medium, where the president of the company believes they have to sign every check, so that forces them to look at all of the payables and make sure it's right? We do that all the time. And yet that becomes a bottleneck. It slows everything down. I had one company say, okay, let's just try an experiment. I want to know how many checks that were under $500 has the president ever said don't send out. And it turned out in the last 3 years, which was as far back as we could look, it had never happened.
Right.
So I said, let's just for an experiment, let the controller sign all checks under $500 and see how that works. We'll still give the president a list of everything so he can see what was paid because he was being nosy, but let's let this go on. Well, what happened is the president stopped looking even at the list because he knew he didn't have to.
And he got more time to do things that only presidents can do.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That was important. I'm sure you've heard, well, give me one of your stories. I'm sure you have some good ones.
Well, one of the things that we always advise people in their management role is there's certain things that that only you can do, and there's things that other people could do as well. The more you're doing of other people's work, the less you're doing of your own.
Right.
And frankly, somebody that spends too much of their time, or a very large proportion of their time at all, doing the work of other people, are rarely effective as managers or executives, because there are certain things that nobody's going to tell them to do. Certain things that they have to think, what are we going to do next year? What's our initiative going to be? How are we going to solve this big problem? What are our customers thinking? How is the market changing? They're not thinking about any of this because they're double checking somebody else's work, or they're doing something anybody or other people could do in the company.
And you know that, if you remember the book by Gerber called The E-Myth, which was entrepreneurial myth, had nothing to do with e-commerce. It's so old, I don't even know if it's still in print. But he said one of the problems with many small businesses is they spend all their time working in the business instead of working on the business.
Exactly.
And that's what you were just describing, is somebody needing to work on the business and understanding, analyzing, and answering those big questions that only the leadership can do.
Yeah, otherwise the whole ship is rudderless, and you have no reliable destination. You just basically go where the wind blows.
Right.
So it's important. So when you think back to the error issue when they were having everybody unpack and repack the orders, in my view, and I'm pretty good at systems and processes, I would be saying, what is the root cause of this? The root cause could be that somebody that's taking the material coming off the truck and putting it in the wrong bin.
Or it was simpler than that.
Or it could, okay, what was the problem?
What it turned out is they had just gone to an e-commerce site, and it was the customer was ordering the wrong things because the e-commerce site was so hard to use, they couldn't get the right order done.
Oh my.
So we had to fix the e-commerce site, and 80% of the problem went away. But it took, like you said, doing some metrics, doing some analytics, finding out where the error was caused.
Yeah, and you know that you've got a problem and how you're addressing it. I imagine, without knowing anything about the scenario, that after they put the repack guy on, they found that they were able to catch the errors before they went out the door, but the number of errors they had to catch didn't diminish at all.
Correct.
And so that's a sign that you're solving the symptom and not the problem.
Well, all he was, because what they were doing is they thought that the problem, and these were coming back as returns.
Right.
And that's, so they said, geez, our returns are going up. They thought the problem was we're not shipping the right stuff out. So my first thought was, well, let's look at where the returns come from. How many were warranty claims? How many were the customer ordered the wrong product? And how many were where we shipped the wrong product? Mm-hmm. Well, it became the customer ordering the wrong product was the biggest count.
So you did an analysis to find out what the actual problem was.
And having them unpack and repack the box didn't change the problem at all and didn't get a better result.
Yeah, and let me editorialize just for a moment while we're on this topic because it's really vital. We have reporting in WayPoint that tracks by customer, how many products we're selling below cost and how many products we have that are being returned. And where we have dysfunctional operations, we see very, very large proportions of customers that have returns, and the profit drain caused by returns is astronomical.
I couldn't believe it.
You can be doing $1 million in sales and have $20,000 of returns, and it can wipe out almost all the profit you make on everything else that you do. And so those issues are much, much more important and much more vital for a good executive team to have a handle on than most people realize.
And that comes down to the thing we talked about before. Before you try to solve a problem, ask why at least 5 times so you can get to the real underlying problem. Yeah. Because as long as all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid on the symptom may go away, but another one's going to pop up because the problem's still there.
Yeah, and that's excellent, an excellent point. You need to teach your people how to troubleshoot, how to use critical thinking, and to ask why. Why do we have so many returns? Why is this kind of return happening? What is the type of cause that we have? And why do we have this kind of problem going on that causes this kind of return versus that kind of return? And so when you're asking about all the whys, it's basically you're working your way down to the root cause so you can solve the actual problem.
And by the way, when you get down to the base, just like in the example I gave, there are multiple root causes. It turned out that the lowest cause of shipping errors was our picking the wrong thing. So all of that repacking did nothing.
Right.
It was absolutely the wrong thing to try and fix.
It was addressing 2% of the problem.
Right.
And leaving the rest right where it was. And of course, if the customer is ordering the wrong thing in the first place, repacking the thing wouldn't solve anything at all.
Right. And we also found by looking that one of the biggest mistakes when it was our fault is we would pick one off the shelf, but they'd put one box which contained 12. Uh-huh. And so it was a unit of measure thing. And I'll give you an easy way to solve that.
Yeah.
What we did is the computer could calculate the estimated weight of the shipment. Mm-hmm. So we weighed the box. If the estimated weight and the actual weight was off by more than about 2%, now we knew there was a shipping error. And since we knew where most of them came from, we looked for something that was picked as 1, but we shipped the whole box instead of just the 1.
Got it.
And we were able to eliminate those very easily because we understood exactly what was causing them.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is you were able to put a system on that would address the actual errors rather than making a system that addressed all of the things that didn't include errors as well, which was the majority of the work.
Correct.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, so Steve, that was really beneficial and a great example of what kinds of things that you can do to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of what you're doing in the organization. Some good, interesting ideas about how to, a lot of things that we want to solve are caused by inappropriate processes or old processes that should be updated to match what the customers want, the way that things work now. And when we look into problem resolution, making sure that we're asking why enough times to actually solve the problem rather than solving the symptom of the problem, so that we're properly applying our resources and making sure that we're getting the result we want, and that is whatever the problem is goes away so it doesn't impact the business anymore.
Randy, I'm going to give you an A.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you for spending time with us in this video. I hope that there's some things in here that will be beneficial to you. I hope you'll walk away with a couple of things that you may do differently and better that will improve the nature of your business. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in future videos.